How's it going, everyone? Welcome back. I got the idea for this video from a friend of mine, Solitary Ronin Films. And this is not really a response video, but I like the idea, so I'm going to try this out. It's showing one film and a backup film for every year of the 21st century. So I'm taking all these from what I have listed on my Letterbox page. And for context, I never started using Letterboxd until 2014, and it was only gradually that I started making sure I recorded every single thing that I watched and rewatched on Letterboxd so that I could remember. So, you guys know me pretty well. I obviously know more about films from the 20th century than I do this century. So there are a lot of years here where I have not seen a lot of films. And I'm going to tell you exactly how many I have recorded for each year before I show you the two films I've chosen. All right. So here we go for the year 2000, and I have listed 21 films for that year. So my first choice is the perfect film for record collectors, High Fidelity, starring John Cusack, which is great fun, something I can rewatch again and again. And my backup film is also for record collectors. This is a documentary called Vinyl by a gentleman named Alan Zweig or Zweig, I'm not sure. Anyway, this is this gentleman who is a record freak himself and interviewing and filming other record freaks, all these folks that are on the back here, some really fascinating and complicated people, and their lives caught up with their collecting habit, how it's affecting their lives, their personal lives, everything. And this is a nice little set here. Has two versions of the film. So if you happen to be a record collector, this is probably something you would enjoy seeing. All right. For the year 2001, I have 31 films from that year. And I'm choosing David Lynch's Mulholland Drive, one of the best mysteries ever recorded on film. And the second is a more obscure film that a lot of you may not know about. This is The Jimmy Show, directed by and starring a gentleman named Frank Whaley. And it features Ethan Hawke. Now, Ethan Hawke is the reason why I bought this film in the first place. A few years ago, I started liking Ethan Hawke as an actor, and I wanted to get as many of his films as I could find. So I sent away for a big stack of them from oldies.com, and this is one of them that I'd never heard of. Fascinating film. Ethan Hawke has a supporting role, but Frank Whaley is the star. He plays a gentleman who is a working class guy who is a good-hearted guy taking care of his invalid mother, and he believes that he has the talent to be a stand-up comic. And he goes to these amateur shows where he tries to work out his trade and get a following, and he's a dismal failure. So his comedy routines start to be these very serious introspective discussions about what's going on in his life. It's a very good film and a great performance by Frank Whaley. So if you never heard of this, I would advise you to check it out. All right. Next up for the year 2002, I have 22 films listed. And the first one is this very serious film starring Robin Williams. This is 1 Hour Photo, a very popular film among a lot of people I know on YouTube. And this plays a very lonely guy who gets involved with a family that he knows only because he develops their pictures, right? And he feels like he's part of the family, and it turns into a very strange um, kind of a psychological character study and a thriller as well. A very good performance by Robin Williams. And the second film for that year is another very serious film, A Beautiful Mind. Okay, which yeah, I love this film very much. Next up is for the year 2003. I have 18 films for that year, and this is a documentary called Festival Express, which this records a concert tour in Canada in 1970 that features people like the Grateful Dead, Janis Joplin, just a few months before Janis Joplin died in 1970. Ian and Sylvia, let's see, Buddy Guy. Wow. Anyway, it's just very cool to see the music and all the interaction between the people like Jerry Garcia and Janis Joplin. You know, it's just a great time capsule, plus some good music as well. Next up for that year, from Jim Jarmusch, it's this very strange compilation film called Coffee and Cigarettes, which has people like Kate Blanchett, different vignettes, different stories. Roberto Benigni, Stephen Wright, Steve Buscemi, Iggy Pop, Tom Waits, Meg and Jack White. Very interesting and funny little movie. All right, and some of very serious too. So next up is the year 2004. I have 23 films for that year. And first off is one of my favorite documentaries, Fly Jefferson Airplane, which is all about the band and their history. And this has interviews with everybody because they were all still alive back then. The only one who's not interviewed is the original female lead singer, Signe Anderson. But Grace Slick is in it, Jorma Kaukonen. It's just really fascinating, especially if you love this group and their music, which I do. Next up is a very serious film and not one that's easy to watch. The Machinist with yeah, Christian Bale. I like this film very much. It's a fascinating performance, but man, it's not easy to watch. Okay. Next up from the year 2005, I have 25 films for that year, and first film is Woody Allen's Match Point, starring Scarlett Johansson, and let's see who are Brian Cox, Matthew Good, yeah, Jonathan Rhys Meyers. Um, one of Woody Allen's best serious films, bar none. Next up is a film that I saw in a film class. First of all, Tommy Lee Jones stars and directs it as well. The Three Burials of, let's see, Melquiades Estrada. Okay, not a terribly well-known film, but definitely worth checking out. Okay, next up, let's see, we have 2006, 20 films for that year, and the first one I'm choosing is Stranger Than Fiction. Wow, what great cast of actors. Will Ferrell. This is the only film I've ever really liked Will Ferrell in because he doesn't play the usual kind of comedy that he's known for. Maggie Gyllenhaal, Dustin Hoffman, Queen Latifah, Emma Thompson, one of the cleverest, best written stories I've seen in a long time. All right. Next up for that year, from this compilation horror film called Haunted Spirits, another performance by Robin Williams in a very serious thriller called The Night Listener, which co stars Toni Collette at her absolute weirdest. Okay. Next up for the year 2007, I have a film called Mike. Well, everybody knows this film. Michael Clayton, George Clooney, Tilda Swinton, great thriller, and very well done. One you can rewatch 1,000 times. And a lesser known film for my backup, Anthony Hopkins directed and stars in a film called Slipstream, which is all about an aging film director whose life and work start to combine and get mixed up in his own brain. It's beautifully filmed, great visuals, and yeah, who else is in this? Christian Slater is in it, John Turturro, Fanula Flanagan. Wow, highly recommended. All right, next up for 2008, this is a gift from my good friend Robert Harrison, who sent this to me, Marley and Me. This is a story about a man and his dog, Owen Wilson and Jennifer Aston, and that beautiful little dog. Great story, made me cry, I have to admit. All right. Thanks again, Bob. And another film that I saw at the theater and just recently picked up at a flea market and forgot how good it was. This is Doubt, starring Meryl Streep and Philip Seymour Hoffman and Amy Adams. All about a nun, a very strict nun back in the early 1960s, who is trying to ruin this priest's life because she believes that she knows something about him, but she at the end she realizes that she wasn't sure, and it's a tragedy really. But great performances by everybody concerned. All right, let's see. Now we are up to what are we up to? 2009. One of the best Coen Brothers films, A Serious Man, and also from that year, and Education. Let's see, Peter Sarsgaard, Alfred Molina, Rosalind Pike, Olivia Williams, Emma Thompson, and Carey Mulligan in the lead role of a young girl who is growing up a little bit too fast and getting involved with an older man that she thinks she knows, but she doesn't really. And it's a very good movie. All right. Next up is 2010. Oh, I forgot to tell you for 2008, I had 25 films, 2009, 25, and now I'm up to 2010, and I have 21 films for that year. And the first one is The Way, starring Martin Sheen, directed by his son Emilio Estevez, all about a man who decides to go on a religious pilgrimage to complete what his son had started out. His son started this pilgrimage in France, going to Spain, and died on the way, died right at the beginning of it. And this is about a real religious pilgrimage called the Way of Saint John of Compostela, and it's something that people do year after year. And anyway, it's a beautiful film. Martin Sheen gives a great performance, and Emilio Estevez does a good job as a director. He also appears in the film very briefly. Okay, and next up is Winter's Bone, Jennifer Lawrence, a film that is, well, it's brilliant. It depicts a culture in the southern part of Missouri, in a not that far away from where I live, actually, where it could almost be another world, and about a young woman who's trying to make her way through the established mores of the people she lives with to save her family. It's a very complicated story, and it'd take too much to explain it here, but beautifully done, great use of music, and a good performance by Jennifer Lawrence. Okay, next up is, let's see, for 2011, I have 42 films. So I got busy that year. Hard to believe. This is a film called The Best Exotic Marigold Hotel. Judi Dench, Bill Nighy, Dev Patel, Tom Wilkinson, Maggie Smith. And I love this film very much. And I actually have the sequel sitting on the shelves and I've never watched it, but this is terrific. Also from that year, this beautiful photographic documentary called Samsara, which is just sort of an exploration of architecture and topography and human experience through in different parts of the world, filmed in many different countries, and it's just beautiful. It's just hypnotically beautiful. And yeah. So anyway, Samsara. Next up is the year. Let's see. 2012, and I have 32 films for that year. I'm going to show you two horror films. First, the Barbarian Sound Studio, which I've talked about on YouTube before. A brilliant film. Toby Jones from England, and another film, an American film called Sinister, starring Ethan Hawke. Once again, one of my favorite actors. Okay, and from 2013, I have 36 films, starting with this black and white masterpiece, Nebraska, starring Bruce Dern. And for that year, also, I have Night Moves, starring Jesse Eisenberg, which is something I found as a blind buy at Big Lots for $3 and was surprised at how good it was. All about three environmental activists who decide to do something profound, and it just absolutely changes their lives forever. Okay, good performance by all concerned. Um, Next up is, let's see, for the year 2014, I had 38 films for that year. And the first one is Foxcatcher, a film that just about everybody knows about and very popular. Another film that's not easy to watch, based on real life happenings. Steve Carell, Channing Tatum, Mark Ruffalo. Wow, great movie. And next up for that year, another film that's not terribly easy to watch, Jake Gyllenhaal in Nightcrawler. All right. And for 2015, I actually had 50 films that I saw that year. Wow, hard to believe. This film, The Gift, starring Jason Bateman, Rebecca Hall, and Joel Edgerton, in a very moving and sometimes terrifying story about revenge. Okay. And for that year also, this another Ethan Hawke movie, Born to Be Blue, in which Ethan Hawke plays the tragic trumpet player and singer Chet Baker, who happens to be a favorite of mine. And Ethan Hawke does a good job. It's not a great film, has a lot of flaws, but it has enough good in it where I would recommend it. Ethan Hawke is wonderful. Next up is for the year 2016, another big year for me. I had 59 films for that year, and here is Patterson, starring Adam Driver, all about a bus driver in Patterson, New Jersey, whose name happens to be Patterson. And there's nothing else like it. I don't know what else to say. I saw this at the theater and then I saw it again in the film class. Okay. Next up for that year is Jake Gyllenhaal once again, Nocturnal Animals, also with Amy Adams. Okay. And let's see, now we're up to the year 2017, 50 films for that year, another big year. And absolutely one of my favorite films in the whole world, which I've talked about before, is The Endless, which is a science fiction film like no other. And I don't even know how to describe it. I've talked about this before, I've written about it on my blog. And if you've never seen this, please give it a chance. It is absolutely wonderful. And another one of my favorite films from that year, A Ghost Story, starring Casey Affleck and Rooney Mara. Okay. And again, there's never been anything like this either. So, and for the next year, we have 43 films, 2018. And this is a film called Leave No Trace, which is beautiful and heartbreaking about a man who is trying to live off the grid because he just doesn't want to be a part of society. And he has his young daughter, teenage daughter, with him. And then she decides to break away. It's a beautiful and, yeah, a very heartbreaking movie. And here's a film that a lot of people just may not have heard of. I saw this at the Art Theater. I don't think it's terribly well known. It's called Nancy. It stars Amanda, what are they? Amanda Risborough. I think that's her name. It's hard to see. An English actress. And Steve Buscemi is also in it. It's all about a young woman. She's in her 30s, living a very difficult life, taking care of her invalid mother, not much going on with relationships, has a very vivid imagination, and she comes to believe that she might be the long lost daughter of a couple who is still, after 30 years, trying to find the daughter that was kidnapped, taken away from them. And she sees them on television on the anniversary of their daughter's kidnapping. And she contacts them because she thinks she might be their daughter. And it looks like it might be a psychological thriller, but it's a very quiet character study and very moving. Okay. Next up is, let's see. For 2019, I had 49 films, and Ethan Hawke once again, Adopt a Highway, another kind of a quiet movie that doesn't have a lot of action, but just a lot of very human action, I guess you would say, about a young man who has just gotten out of prison and is trying to get his life back together. And one night, when he's closing up his fast food restaurant job late at night, he finds a baby in a dumpster, and then he decides to try to keep her for a while, and then he realizes he can't. But it's a very great story, and once again, Ethan Hawke proves what a good actor he is. Okay, and for that year, this is another film I've talked about before. Another blind buy from Dollar Tree this time. Dark Encounters, sort of a science fiction human story which takes a sharp turn from where you think it's going and it becomes something completely different. And I think it's absolutely brilliant. All right, so let's wind this up as fast as we can. Next is the year 2020. I have 13 um, movies for that year. And the top one I have for that year, I don't have a copy of. It's The Way Back, starring Ben Affleck. If any of you saw it, it was a very popular film, and I think probably the best dramatic performance that Ben Affleck ever did. And my second film for that year is The Father, starring Anthony Hopkins and Olivia Colman, which again is, well, it's powerfully acted and devastating, all about a man who is suffering from dementia, Alzheimer's. Okay. Next up for 2014, I have, no, I'm sorry, that's 2021. And this is 14 films. Number one, what else? Get Back. Number two is Belfast. Okay. And now we get to 2022. And the first one is Banshees of Inisherin. And the second, here's the one you've never heard of. This is called Saturnalia, directed by an independent filmmaker who's trying to make a name for himself and a very talented guy, an actor, director, writer named Joshua Kennedy. And he put together this film. It's all about this beautiful woman named, her name is Danny Thompson, okay? Gorgeous actress. And he's a guy who is trying to be a cartoonist. He's actually a pizza delivery guy, and he's always going off into fantasy. And he loses his job, and he gets caught up in this strange happening where the the fantasy character that he created comes to life, and he starts living out the adventures of both this character and all of the. I'm making it sound really crazy, but um, it's a very clever film, animation as well as good comedy, and I don't know, it's very well done. All right, sorry, don't mean to make it sound really bizarre. Next up is the year 2023, and I only saw 9 films that year. The best film I saw that year is The Sound of Freedom, which I don't have a copy of. I love the film; it was brilliant. I don't think I ever want to see it again. It was just too heavy, and I probably will never own it. The next film from that year is The Old Oak from director Ken Loach, and I just recently picked this up from the most recent Kino Lorber sale, and it's brilliant. Okay, all about well, the Old Oak is a pub in a town in England where people are dealing with losses of jobs and poverty, and dealing with immigration. And it all centers around the man who owns this pub and how he chooses to deal with all the things going on around him. Okay, beautiful film. And finally, for the year 2024, I've only seen 6 films so far this year, and it's getting to the end of the year, so I may not see any more. But both of the films that I have, I don't own. The first one is Conclave, starring Ralph Fiennes, all about Vatican intrigue, the election of a new pope. Very good film, even though it has agenda written all over it. It's very well done and moves along very well. And the second film is a thriller called Speak No Evil, which I like very much, even though it gets pretty bloody at the end. But it's well done and worth seeing. Sorry to keep you so long. I hope you enjoyed this. Comments are definitely welcome. All right. Take care, folks.